Welcome to the Wizards Brew podcast. This is a podcast about deck building and good deck building theory. I'm Carl Jalm.
And I'm Daniel Nyhus.
And today we're going to be talking about the event that just happened this past weekend. I'm pretty sure most of you were watching Pro Tour Madrid. Biggest event.
Yeah, that was pretty big for Shadows of Innistrad, actually. Like, seeing all these kind of decks coming out and showing off, what decks are really cool and different brews. And this is what the Pro Tour is all about. It's to show off what the set really can do. And it's always great to have these Pro Tours come out.
Yeah, and we are going to get right into that. But first, we do want to touch a little bit on some recent news that came out during the weekend. And that's the changes to the Platinum Pro level and their appearance fees.
Yeah, this was a bit of a botch on multiple angles. I was going to go really, really deep into this. There's no reason to really touch on it too much because you can find this everywhere else on the internet. And more or less, we don't want to talk about negative stuff too much. We want to talk about more positive and deck building strategies. But it was disappointing that Wizards did it the way they did it. If you would like to explain, you may.
Yeah, so for those who don't know, platinum level players, and those are players who have earned a certain number of pro points, they would, for big events like the Pro Tour, not only get their flight and their accommodations paid for by Wizards of the Coast, but also get a $3,000 appearance fee just for showing up. So, if you're platinum level, you make money by just going to Magic tournaments. So the big announcement that happened was Wizards said that they are going to reduce that appearance fee to just $250. And they said that this is retroactive, and anyone who is currently platinum level would only be getting $250 for Pro Tour Madrid.
And I think that was, and everyone agreed because there was a public outcry, and Wizards even sent a public acknowledgement saying this was a mistake. We didn't mean to do it this way. This is for next year. But they should have done it via emails and talking to the pros and under NDA, not in the open like this. And it had a huge trickle-down effect. I mean, Yumi were even talking about this yesterday. Vintage Super League was canceled. They were like, until further notice, the Vintage Super League is canceled. That's a big deal. Like, these pros are outcrying for it because it was done so improperly. It was done almost as a backhand slap to the people that are playing Magic, because it all comes down from the top, man, trickles all the way down. Because now the pros aren't going to the Pro Tour. They don't want to do these bigger events. They don't even want to be acknowledged by Wizards of the Coast anymore. Like, people were freaking out about this. It was a big deal.
And thankfully, Wizards, they kind of backed up a little bit. They said, okay, we'll retain the $3,000 appearance fee for the rest of the Pro Tours for this season, and we'll be talking with the pros to see what can be done. So it does seem like, they are listening to the community. They heard the outcry, and they're looking to fix it.
Well, I mean, when you got Eric Froelich and John Finkel and Patrick Chapin and all these other players saying, we're not coming to the next Pro Tour, who's coming to the Pro Tour then?
like these are the guys who get a lot of people to watch the Pro Tour. Like, I know that I like watching the Pro Tour. Just I have my favorite players. I mean, I love watching people like Luis Scott Vargas, John Finkel, Ali Antrazi. I love seeing these guys play. So if all of them were to suddenly disappear, a lot of my drive to watch the big Magic events would mostly be gone.
Yeah, and that's kind of something we just wanted to, touch on. Be like, hey, it's disappointing that Wizards of the Coast did this, and it's something to be aware of. That Wizards, they're gonna say stuff and do stuff that not everybody's gonna like. But if you say something and you're like, yo, this is wrong, maybe they'll listen. And that's how the world works, actually. To kind of go real on this moment, speak up. Don't stand there and be idle. Like, you definitely have to speak up sometimes, and it will work. Eventually it does. With enough people saying this is wrong, it will be changed to right and then fixed properly.
Yeah. Now, back to our regular subject matter. We're going to talk a bit about the Pro Tour metagame, mostly what kind of decks we saw and what choices they made, similar to how we covered the Star City Games Baltimore event. So first off, we want to take a good look at the Day 2 metagame. So Danny and I have been discussing this. I like looking at the full Day 2 metagame more than just the top 8 because it tells you a fuller story. You get to see the decks that the top 8 had to fight through to get to the top.
Yeah, because like the top 8's really cool and interesting. It was 8 different decks, very cool. We had green-white aggro, which was a green-white tokens build. Then we had Bant aggro, which is, I believe, Bant Company. Mm-hmm. Esper Control.
Yeah, and one of those was the Esper Dragons variant, so we got to see 2 different flavors of Esper Control, which is really nice.
Yep, and then we got Red-White Goggles, which was definitely an interesting build on it. But then we had Black-Green Aristocrats, Red-Green Goggles, and finally, to round it all out, Green-Black Season Pass Control. And this is one of the most diverse metas that we've seen for the past couple Pro Tours, honestly, and it's awesome.
Yeah, and with just how many different decks there are that are viable, there were actually a lot of people talking about this, a lot of the pros talking about this in interviews, and I agree with them. This is probably the most skill-intensive standard that we've seen, just because there's so many different things that are viable. It's not so much choosing the right deck, but knowing how to play your deck.
Yeah, and I would agree with them. On the Invitational, I played Band Company, and then this past weekend in States, I played Blue-Red Goggles. And holy crap, there is a huge difference. Both require different skills, and it's just so... It's nice to say that Standard actually revolves a little skill. Like, holy crap, this is good.
like especially talking about the Goggles decks, I mean, there are times where you have to know, I have 3 lands and Magmatic Insight in hand. Do I cast it turn 1? I gotta think about the rest of my deck first.
Exactly. You have to make sure you can dig the right cards up, or you're going to draw too many lands, you're going to flood out. It's more interactive and more interesting. This is probably the best time to get into Standard. Avoid a blue deck, but because Jace is too expensive, but get into it because the decks are so interesting, and they're going to change every week.
Yeah, and I mean, comparing this event to SCG Baltimore, we can see Bant Collected Company and the various flavors of white humans. Both were still very present. I mean, there was 20. They each took up 20% of the meta.
Yes, they did.
Yeah, and I mean, they still showed up very huge, but we only saw Bant Company make it to the top 8. People came prepared this time.
You have to, man, because like I said, I was playing that deck, and if you weren't ready for that deck, you were in trouble because it was just a complete crushing. You're just like, yeah, turn 1, turn 2, turn 3, Collected Company, get you. Like, you can go super fast with that deck.
Yeah, and we saw a lot of people playing specific spells that do very well against the decks. We saw more Languish decks, more decks that had Tragic Arrogance somewhere in their 75. But we also saw, and this was an interesting point, a lot of decks that just played no to little creatures in their main deck, mainly so that they didn't give the Bant Collected Company player value off the Reflector Mage.
Or their Bounding Carassus as well. Like, both of those are extremely valuable cards to the deck, being able to play on instant speed technically, and it's a feel bad when you bounce back a powerful creature, and you're just like, dang, I can't cast him. Oh, I just drew the same card.
Yeah, that always feels really bad. I had someone do that to me when I was playing some Brew with Undergrowth Champions, and he goes, Reflector Mage, bounce your Undergrowth Champion, and I just draw another one, and I'm like...
Dang. Yeah, it's a feel-bad moment.
Now, we did see some new decks show up, and that was the red-green Goggles ramp. We saw Brad Nelson take this into the top 8, but there were 5 of these decks in the Day 2 meta, and this was really sweet. I mean, they basically took Todd Anderson's list from SCG Baltimore and replaced all the blue with the green ramp tools.
Yeah, so they pretty much just like kept all the good, powerful red cards, cut the blue, added ramp, added a couple of Ulamog's, and we're just like, yo, you're dead. Like, it played at multiple angles. Yeah,
you still got to do the double Magmatic Insight. You still got to finish off your opponent with with Double Fall the Titans, but you had that advantage of being able to go, here's Dragon Lord Atarka to wipe the board, here's World Breaker to get rid of problem permanents, here's, like, some lists were playing Ulamog. So it was a really cool version of the Goggles deck, and it performed really well. I mean, out of those 5 Red-Green Goggles players, 3 of them went completely undefeated in day 1 of their standard rounds.
And that is unbelievable. When I was told on day 1 that there was a Green-Red Goggles deck, I'm like, dang, I'm building the wrong deck for States, man. I really am.
Yeah, and it was just a really cool one. We also saw Control coming back in. I mean, 15% of the meta was various flavors of Control. We had Esper Control, there was a Mardu Control list going around, there were the Seasons Past Control decks. So people, now that, you know, the meta is starting to be figured out, Control's starting to come back because people know what answers to be bringing.
And this is what I believe we touched on this earlier, where we're just like, you know, aggro mid-range is going to be all over the place for a little while, and then Control is going to exist again, because you can't just go into a meta with a new Control deck, because you don't know what's good. You know, is Flaying Tendrils a good card, or is Languish a good card to play? And obviously Languish is the better card to play now, but when we were first, you know, looking at Standard, Tendrils looked pretty good.
Yeah, Flame Tendrils looked pretty good, and then everyone started realizing, oh, everything gets out of range too quick, so you have to play Languish. And, I mean, looking at, like, the Control decks that we've seen, Esper Planeswalkers, this version that just plays a whole bunch of Planeswalkers, counter spells, draw spells, this had the biggest representation in day 2. It was about 4% of the meta. And this is a very strong deck. I mean, it was playing Jason Raveler's Secrets, it was playing Sorin, it was playing Narset Transcendent, and I saw on coverage multiple times a Narset get ultimated, and that was insane.
Narset is a card that is still so good, and man, being able to rebound, like, wait a second, I just said this, rebounding spells again. We haven't done that in 6 to 8 months. This is great.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've seen people actually rebounding spells, and it's really cool to watch. Like someone just goes, minus Narset, and kill that thing. Next turn I'm going to kill that thing. And it's just really cool to watch this deck, you know, just answer everything, and just have all these Planeswalkers that start with so much loyalty.
Yeah, it's just, oh god, like, Narset, Jace, Obnixilis, and Sorin, like, Sorin, man. Ooh, what a baller, man. You're just like, yeah, I'll just reveal another Sorin, you take 6.
Yeah, and they were saying, you know, Sorin kind of helps out the deck because your main draw engine is Read the Bones, because you're a base black deck. So, you know, you're losing a lot of life to Read the Bones, and Sorin just gets it all back. You just go, okay, play Sorin, -4, kill that thing, or, you know, just -3, hit you in the face, and you gain that much life. And it's really cool.
Or just kill a Planeswalker, because that's a thing.
Yep, kill an enemy Planeswalker is always good too.
Yeah.
So before we move on, we're going to do a quick shout out for one of our sponsors, Pro Play Games. This is a card shop down in West Palm Beach. They do online orders as well. These guys are, the one thing I like is they're really stepping up their player sponsorships, like sponsoring specific players to play the game. Yeah,
they're really out. They're really spreading their logo all over the place. I would say at States, I saw 11 to 12 players, including myself, either wearing their jacket, shirt, or using their playmat. And there was only 100 people, less than 100 people in the standard event alone.
Yeah, and really big news is one of the sponsored players, Michael Rodriguez, he actually took the whole championship. Just ended up winning the Star City Games Standard State Championship for Florida.
Yeah, I saw that, congratulated him and all that kind of stuff, and the entire team, and including myself, we're very proud of him. Like, it's good for him, man. Like, honestly, like, it's hard to make a meta call on the 3rd week of Standard and do that well. So they have a very solid team and a bunch of good players. Also, friendly staff. Like, God, their staff is amazing. George and Philippe are just amazing.
Yeah, they're really great guys. I really love walking in and seeing them there, because I always know they're going to point me in the right direction if I need anything. Like, if I need a specific card, they'll be like, yeah, you know, let me just pull it out for you. They jump into the events to play in them when there's not enough people to fire it. So they're always really great guys to see there. They do stream a lot of the events, as we've been saying. They're going to be streaming Standard. It's actually going to be... We're posting this Friday, so it's going to be tonight. They'll be streaming Standard. And they do regular streaming of their other events as well, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Super Smash Brothers. So anytime you see their stream, it's going to be a nice bit of entertainment.
Yeah, and definitely let them know that we sent you that way. Like, love for everybody, man. Honestly, spread it around. It's great stuff.
Yeah, so if you want to check them out, website is pro-playgames.com. We'll have links in the description to their Twitter, Twitch, and Facebook. Now, we're going to go a bit deeper into some of the decks, some of the sweeter decks that we saw over the weekend. First one we want to touch on is one of my favorite players, Luis Scott Vargas. This guy is just an amazing Magic player.
Yeah, and not only did LSV bring this deck, but the entire, I think it was the Channel Fireball's Pantheon group brought it in.
Yeah, the Channel Fireball crew brought it in, and this is a green-black aristocrats. And I mean, with this deck, Rally's back.
It pretty much is. There's a couple of intricacies. It's only 2 colors now, not 4. Mm-hmm. It doesn't go off at instant speed. It's a little grindier, but you're still running the core pieces of this deck. You're running the Tico Husk. You're running Zulaport Cutthroat and
Catacomb Sifter.
Yes, Catacomb Sifter. I haven't played the deck in a little while, so I completely forgot. But you're still playing the good cards. It's just you cut the other 2 colors because they're just not that good.
Yeah, well, I mean, you are playing Cryptolith, right? So maybe you are a 5-color deck?
Quick tangent. Like, when that card came out, I don't know why Wizards didn't give that card away to somebody and be like, hey, spoil this card. People, it was just like the last day spoil. They're like, hey, we brought this card out. It's like, give all my creatures Bird of Paradise?
Yeah, turn them all into birds. And it's amazing for the deck, too, because we saw LSV multiple times go turn 1 Blister Pod or Loam Dryad, turn 2 Cryptolith, right, turn 3 Collected Company. Like, multiple times we saw this happen. It's so good.
And then, like, your Eldrazi Scions tap for 2 mana, basically, because you tap and then sack. It's like, oh, it's so good.
Tap it, float mana, sacrifice to generate mana, get Zulaport Cutthroat triggers, cast your thing. You're just going off.
Living the dream.
Yeah, and it's really good because the problem with the Rally deck was the fact that, if you had to play stuff during your turn, you couldn't really hold up your mana for Rally Ancestor Collected Company too easily because you had a limited number of lands. But with Cryptolith, right, your creatures are your mana sources. You're rarely ever attacking unless it's an Nantuko Husk that's going in. And so if someone goes to board wipe you, someone goes to cast Language, you just go, in response, tap all my creatures to float mana. After Languish resolves, I'll cast Collected Company and start over.
Yeah, just restock, go again. Or even then, like, you're just like, okay, cool, I'm going to try to look for a Zulaport Cutthroat and get the win because you're going to drain me for 6. And I'm going to gain 6.
Oh, yeah, and the Crypto Threat was a great tool for the deck. I honestly think this is a card that makes it a thing.
Yes, very much.
Yeah, now, the cool thing with the deck is, I mean, Westvale Abbey has kind of been everywhere in Standard, and this deck can make very good use of it because it's kind of the alternate win condition.
Yeah, so Westvale Abbey has been trying to put into almost every single deck that you can think of, just because people want to be like, oh, I'm going to sack 5 creatures and kill you. Like, there hasn't been a really good deck for it. The closest thing was probably the Secure the Waste kind of decks. But I think we found the deck to play it with.
Yeah, this is definitely one of the decks to play it with. I think the biggest thing is, because let's say you have a good number of creatures, you have a Zulaport Cutthroat and a Nantuko Husk on board, but you don't have enough creatures to generate lethal Zulaport Cutthroat triggers. Instead, you just activate your Westvale Abbey, drain your opponent when you sacrifice your creatures, and then attack with your 9/7.
With haste and lifelink.
Yeah, and indestructible. And it's just... It's a really good alternate win for the deck when you don't get the dream of 2 Zulaport Cutthroats and a whole bunch of creatures.
Right, and one thing that makes this deck actually really cool as well, your opponent has to bring in Clip-O-Wings if they're a green deck, because they don't want to be blown out by the Westvale Abbey. So you could just be like, I know you have Clip-O-Wings in your hand, I'll never make it. And they're just sitting on a dead card.
And that's the great thing, is Clip-O-Wings does nothing against this deck. if you're not activating Westvale Abbey.
That is a good feeling, man.
Yep, always good. It's like that's why I always liked playing like transformational decks or like switching into a different strategy. Like the Noyandar Ascendancy deck that we've mentioned a couple times. I would sideboard out all my Noyandars and sideboard in Sphinx's Tutelage, and I'd have people constantly go turn 3 Infinite Obliteration, naming Noyandar, and I'm like, here, sure. It kind of gives that same feeling where it's like you're making sideboard cards dead that they have to bring in against you.
It's just good deck building, man.
Very good deck building. And Liliana is in the deck, and this is Liliana Heretical Healer, and she is very good with the deck. She does exactly what this deck wants to do.
Yep, she makes a 2/2 dude, which is great, which gives you access to other stuff and blockers. But also, because you're not running any legendary creatures besides Liliana, if I'm correct, you can bring back anything you want. Most of the time, you're bringing back a Blister Pod, and you're just like, sure, this is fine. Like, bring back a Blister Pod. I'll sacrifice it, get 2 triggers. Like, deck building. It's great. This is what we're talking about, man. Good deck building.
Yeah, and she does very well for the deck because we saw there were multiple times where the Green-Black Aristocrats player would not have had lethal triggers if they didn't have Liliana in hand. So, like, you just see, okay, here's Liliana, and I already have my Natushkosk on board, sacrifice my Catacomb Sifter, flip Liliana, -3, get back the Catacomb Sifter, and that's just an additional 2 triggers right there. And she does so much for the deck.
Liliana, it's a 3-mana walker, like 2/3 with lifelink. Sure, that's fine. Flips it over, and just becomes a beast.
Yeah, and you just need one of your non-token creatures to die to flip her over. She replaces herself with a 2/2 zombie, so you can still get the Zulapor Cutthroat triggers. And then this deck is dumping its hand so much because it has Cryptolith Right to generate so much mana.
Yeah.
That Liliana's +2, where each player discards a card, there's no downside for you. You just go, okay, you discard something.
Yeah, but most of the time it's you're discarding a land, they're discarding one of their, they have to sit there and go, alright, well, give me a second. Like, because they have too many cards in their hand. Like, Liliana is a baller card. If you have her, I would look into playing this deck. Like, at least look into it. It may not be your style, but, you know, in a little bit we're going to be going over another green-black deck you might be interested in then.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, talking about picking up this deck, I mean, it's not that hard to pick up because the only really expensive cards in the deck are Liliana, Westvale Abbey, and Collected Company. Everything else is pretty cheap because it's all commons and uncommons.
Yeah. Oh, the right is a couple of bucks now. It's like $8 now.
That actually jumped up? Well, there you go.
Oh, yeah.
That jumped up a little bit. But like comparatively to a lot of the other decks in Standard, that's still fairly cheap.
Yeah, and it's running 2 Kalitas and 2 Tyler Shockers in sideboard, but you can definitely tweak those and not have to run them. Like, yes, Kalitas is a good card, but we could play something else if you wanted to.
Yeah. Now, we are going to talk a moment to talk about the deck that actually won the event, spoilers, the Green-White Tokens deck. And this is a really nice deck just because everything in the deck works within each other so very well.
Yeah, and this is one of the decks where we were talking about a Secure the Ways style kind of deck, where you are running Secure the Ways, Westvale Abbey, and tokens. But again, this isn't its only win con; it's running other great cards. I.e., we're talking about Sylvan Advocates, Hangerback Walkers, which by the way is still a card, and Avacens, and what is this? Thraben Inspectors. Ooh.
Yep, Thraben Inspectors. It gives you a nice little turn 1 play, gives you a decent chump blocker against aggro decks, gives you more fodder for Westvale Abbey, and then the deck is playing 8 Planeswalkers. You've got 4 Gideon Ally of Zendikar, 4 Nissa Voice of Zendikar. So both of these Planeswalkers have ways to buff your team. So these Thraben Inspectors, if they stick on the board, just start getting bigger and bigger along with the rest of your board, so you end up having half-decent bodies.
Yeah, it just becomes super interesting. Like this is a green-white token style of deck, and the whole purpose of this deck is really just to go wide. You're looking to just make your little dudes, pump them up, swing in for lethal. Like,
Yeah, and I think that's one of the strengths of the deck in this meta because it floods the board just as well as, or sometimes even better than the humans decks and the collected company decks.
Yeah, it really does. And it also has the defensive ability of flooding the boards. That way they're not dead on board versus collected company or, a bunch of little 1/1s or 1/2s and things like that.
Yeah, and it does have game against like the big archetypes, like all the aggro decks. I mean, it's running for Dramoka's Command. Nissa gives you chump blockers, Hangerback Walker. They don't want to attack into it so much because you get a whole bunch of Thopters. And then generally, your stuff has your stuff all have pretty big butts. I mean, lots of toughness. You've got Sylvan Advocates and Thraben Inspectors, so you can block fairly easily.
Yeah, and then also, like I said before, Archangel Avacyn as a 4/of. That's a blowout sometimes, honestly, where your opponent's just like, all right, well, I'll declare blocks, and it's assigned lethal, and you're just like, Avacyn. They're just like, yeah.
Yeah, and the fact that, you can create so many tokens off of Hangerback Walker and Nissa and Secure the Wastes, Archangel Avacyn works very well, because if your opponent looks at your board and goes, well, I can clear their creatures out, I'll attack with everything. You go, block everything, Archangel Avacyn, and then crack back and get them.
Yeah, exactly. And then also something else to think about. You have 5 untapped mana now. Your opponent is now terrified of End Step Avacyn or Combat Avacyn. You could also just be like, alright, go. And untap. Like, you can't play around this card. It's so difficult.
Yeah, the only way to play around it is to build your deck to fight it. And if you're building your deck to fight Avacyn, you're losing out on fighting all the main strategies that are being played. So it's a very weird trade-off there.
Yeah, it's definitely a blowout kind of card. And also, good deck building strategies here. You're running Hangerback Walker. Hangerback Walker makes 1/1 flyers. They're like Clip the Wings. It's like, okay, I'll find a way to sack my... So they'll cast Clip the Wings on your Avacyn. In response, you will Dramoka's Command targeting your Hangerback Walker plus one of the creatures. Hopefully it will die. And then you just sack one of the 1/1s. You're just like, okay, sack the 1/1.
Yeah, Clipwings doesn't even do much against the deck because of the Hangerback Walkers. It's really nice. And the deck does have really good game against control. I mean, it's playing one Evolutionary Leap main board and a second one sideboard, and that is one of the hardest cards for control to power through.
That card is so good, man. I love Evolutionary Leap. It's basically Survival of the Fittest toned down, but man, it's a good card.
Yeah, and so it's just anytime they target a creature with removal, you just go, well, I'll sack it and draw a creature. Or if you have like leftover tokens and you need to find something bigger, you just go, okay, sack this 1/1 warrior, draw a creature. Oh, look, there's Avacyn. I'll play Avacyn.
Yeah, it's like, I'll just draw Avacyn now. It's like, oh, yeah, okay.
And then you do have a lot of just more good deck building here because Gideon serves a nice little dual purpose of being a very beefy creature. He becomes a 5/5. That's pretty tough to deal with. He can make
indestructible.
Yeah, indestructible. So really tough to deal with. He makes 2/2s, or he can just emblem, which is great in this deck because let's say you get a big Hangerback Walker, it dies in combat, you get like 6 Thopters. You just go, Gideon, -4, attack you with a bunch of 2/2s.
In the air. By the way, right now, Standard doesn't have a lot of reach kind of cards or a lot of flying kind of cards. If you're not playing like the tokens kind of deck, it's very difficult to be like, oh, well, I can't deal with these flyers are going to wreck you. Like, it's tough.
Yeah, and then Nissa is another token generator, and then she also has kind of an Anthem effect, puts +1/+1 counters on each creature you control, which synergizes so well with Hangerback Walker, because you get more Thopters when it dies.
More Thopters, more fun. Your opponent's crying.
And this deck does play 3 Oath of Nissa, which, as I've been saying when talking about my Jund Walkers deck, it's just a good card if you have so many targets for it, and this deck does. It's got the 8 Planeswalkers, it's got 16 creatures, and it's got 25 lands, so it's almost always drawing a card with this.
Even if you don't, you just filtered 3 bad cards. Like, it's very rare that you hit it, so, like, let's say you're just going to hit Evolutionary Leap, Stasis Snare, and Dramoka's Command. Oh, maybe you did want to draw one of those, but now your deck is live again. Like, Oath of Nissa is a green ponder, man. Like, it's one of the best turn 1 plays you can do in Standard right now if you're green, and I love that card. I think it's great.
Yeah, it's definitely one that you need to build your deck for. You can't be playing like a Sultai control deck that's playing a lot of removal spells and play Oath of Nissa. In a deck like this, where there's only a handful of cards that don't get drawn by Oath of Nissa, it's really great. And then just the fact that if your mana's not working for you, you can still cast your Gideons and your Nissas on time just is gravy.
Yeah, all gravy all the time. We love it. This is what we want.
Now, you did mention that green-black control deck, and we're going to talk about it right now. And this is a really cool one, piloted by John Finkel in the top 8. This is Seasons Past Control. This
deck is so cool. So technically, there is a pseudo-infinite engine with this deck, which is Seasons Past plus Dark Petition. So you can Dark Petition for the Seasons Pass, then cast the Seasons Pass, getting back your Dark Petition, putting Season Pass at the bottom of your library, and technically always have value.
Yeah, because after you fetch up your Seasons Pass with Dark Petition, next turn you cast Seasons Pass, get back Dark Petition and a bunch of removal spells, and then just keep doing it every turn.
Yeah, and Seasons Pass reads, grab one of each converted mana cost card from your graveyard, put it back to your hand. This also reads, put a land, put Duress, put Transgress the Mind or Ultimate Price. Give me a 3 mana card. Put, let's say, Liliana, for example. Let me get a 4 mana card, which is going to be Languish, 5 mana card, Dark Petition, 6 mana card. They discarded your Season Pass. Let's bring it back. You have 7 cards in your hand again.
Oh yeah, and Finkel's list plays a one of Nissa's Renewal, which he did say when they were talking about the deck. It's more of just a sweet card. It's just kind of like if you happen to cast Nissa's Renewal, it's just so good. Like you feel so good. You gain 7 life, get a whole bunch of lands into play, and then you just get it back with Seasons Pass and do it again later just to get all the dead draws out of your deck.
Yeah. When I said Liliana, by the way, I didn't look at the deck list. I just looked it over. Let's replace Liliana with Nissa the Vastwood Seer. Sure, I'll draw a land again and flip her over. This is so good. All the value all the time.
The deck just has this infinite value engine that allows it to get back all its removal spells, get back its card draw spells, anything that it needs. And you have so much removal in the deck. I mean, we have 4 Languish, we have 4 Grasp of Darkness, we have 3 Ruinous Path, 2 Ultimate Price. There's a single deadweight in the main board and more in the sideboard for when you need them. And you can even just search up one of your win conditions. You can search up Kalidas. With the 4 Dark Petitions in the deck, you can search up whatever you need starting on turn 5.
This is value. This is the deck. This is the control deck that I want to play.
The really cool thing with this deck, because the basic shell, in my opinion, is 4 Dark Petition, 2 Seasons Past, 4 Read the Bones. That's the basic start of this deck. From there, you can splash other colors if your meta is calling for it. Let's say you need some white for Anguished Unmaking because you're running into a lot of non-creature permanents that you need to get rid of with other removal. You can splash just a little bit of white for those Anguished Unmakings. And the good thing is, Dark Petition can fetch a land if you need it. So let's say you're not drawing any of your white sources, or you haven't drawn an Evolving Wilds, but you have this Anguished Unmaking sitting in your hand. You just Dark Petition for a white source. Next turn, Anguished Unmaking is online.
Or just right there and then use the 3 mana you just got from Dark Petition because Spell Mastery is cool as hell.
Mm-hmm. And Finkel was saying that he hits Spell Mastery in this deck a lot because your first couple turns are Duress, Read the Bones. You're casting at least 2 spells before turn 5, so you 90% of the time have it online and get that 3 mana.
Yeah, this is another deck where I recommend you sleeve it up and you try it. Whether it's proxy or not, you need to know how this deck works, its ins and outs, because it's complicated, and 2, I'm sure if you're a control player, this is the kind of deck you might want to try out as well, because blue isn't that great right now. It's okay. But this is a super cool deck. Like the time, you could just see everything about this deck. And when you look at it, you're just like, the time and energy somebody took to put this deck together, it just speaks for itself. Like, it's so cool.
Yeah, and definitely with how much care was put into this deck, I mean, you can tell that's why he made it to the top 8. And he didn't make it past the quarterfinals. He went into a fairly bad matchup, but he did come prepared for the metagame. I mean, if you look at his deck, like I was saying with removal, 4 copies of Languish, 4 copies of Grasp of Darkness, all the Deadweights, these are for the aggro and Collected Company decks. They help him answer these threats that are otherwise very dangerous for control decks to go up against.
Yeah, plus he's got, what's this? Orb of Warding in his sideboard? Like, come on, this is great.
One of the sweetest artifacts that has come out in the past year. For those who haven't seen it, because it was, it's a rare that was always last picked in Origins, and it didn't really see any play in Standard, saw like fringe play in some Legacy decks here and there. Orbs of Warding is an artifact for 5 mana, and it reads, you have hexproof. And a bonus little thing, if a creature would deal damage to you, prevent 1 of that damage. So I think that this card was put in there specifically for the Goggles decks.
Yes, I believe so as well. And he may have brought it in versus the Humans deck just so he can get a little bit of, like, reducing damage by 1, it's a big deal. Because let's say they drop a Always Watching. Well, they're Always Watching is negated technically. That creature deals 1 less damage. That's a big deal. So this is cool.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And I mean, naturalizes kind of help out with the Always Watching, but this is kind of like another naturalize in a way against those decks. And then also, once you deal with their big threats, then you're taking virtually no damage anymore. That's really nice. So it's definitely a really cool card for the deck, and only one of, because it's not necessary, but it's good when it comes down and you have 4 Dark Petitions, you're going to be able to get it.
Yeah, and you're going to be casting this card because you got Dark Petition, you're going to find it, you're going to be casting it the next turn, or even that turn sometimes. And the blue-red decks, they don't have a lot of ramp. I mean, the green-red did, like, you probably die sooner with that one, but the Orbs of Warding really worked well, I'm sure, against this the blue-red Goggles decks.
Now he does have, of course, more sideboard options. He's got the 2 Virulent Plague, 2 in a black enchantment creature tokens get -2/-2, and this is specifically for all the decks that want to activate Westvale Abbey.
Yep, basically Steve Rubin's deck, the one that took first place, the green-white tokens deck. This is definitely a shout out to it being going, hey, I have a way of stopping you. You're gonna hate me.
Yeah, it makes it so they can't really activate Westvale anymore. It's really tough. Now, against certain matchups, this isn't enough. Let's say if you go up against the Green-Black Aristocrats deck, they actually still get the death triggers from their tokens. So if they already have Zulaport Cutthroat on board, they're still getting their triggers.
Yeah, you're going to feel bad on that one. Also, there's a small Nombo in the deck. Can you point it out? I'll give you 2 seconds.
Yeah, Virulent Plague and Kalitas. I remember this one.
Yep, and also Nissa, you can't minus her with it because it'll make a 2/2, not a 4/4.
Yeah.
You don't want to, it's just not good value. But most of the time, your Nissa's drawing cards most of the time.
Yeah, I actually knew about this, the Virulent Plague Kalitas non-bow, because my Jund deck in the previous standard, I had Kalitas in the deck main board, but we actually had this one player at our local shop who was playing a black-white control deck that would win with Secure the Wastes, and I had 2 Virulent Plague on the sideboard, and what I would do against him is I would specifically just swap Kalitas and Virulent Plague. Just the direct swap, just because he didn't run any creature's main deck except for Shambling Vent, so Kalitas almost never triggered.
Yeah.
Yeah, so because of the non-bow, I would just, anytime I brought in Virulent Plague, I took out Kalitas because it just didn't work.
Yeah, and I'm sure that John Finkel didn't let this happen all the time. Like I'm very sure that Kalitas came out and Virulent Plague came in a lot of the times, or vice versa. You know what I mean? He's a much better player than both of us, and probably everybody at Wizards Tower combined.
Yeah, and John Finkel is definitely one of the best players in Magic. He's one of the guys that I definitely look to when I'm looking to improve my play. I like watching him play because he really knows what he's doing when he's playing the deck. It's great to watch.
How many top 8s does this guy have? Like 18 or something? In the Pro Tour top 8s, by the way. This isn't Grand Prix or anything. This is Pro Tour top 8s. It's like 18 or something like that over like 20 years. You should go. There's a clip it going around that was showing him when he was younger. Yo, he's got like blonde highlight hairs.
The little montage that shows him throughout the years. Yeah, I'll see if I can get a link for our listeners in the description. I'll get a link out for you guys for that video. Just go ahead and take a look at it, see how long John Finkel's been playing the game and how long he's been performing well. It's great.
It's great.
Yeah. So we do want to take a moment just to talk about our own plans for Constructed. Just because, with looking at how the meta is shifting with the Pro Tour and stuff, it may not be the same at your local level or even at our local level at Wizards Tower and Pro Play Games, but definitely looking at these two big events has given me a lot to think about, at the very least.
Yeah, it's given me some insight as well, and at the very end, I'm going to discuss something I'm going to get real with y'all for the last couple of minutes.
Yeah. So, at least my thoughts on Constructed right now, standard-wise, the Jund Control Planeswalkers deck that I've been talking about for a while, I am changing it up quite a bit. And it saddens me to be cutting black because there's some good tools in black. I mean, you've got the Languish, you've got Dark Petition, but for what my Planeswalkers deck wants to be doing, which is curve out on Planeswalkers and just answer threats as they come down, I've decided to cut black for white.
And that's a big change, going from Jund to Naya.
Yeah, it is a big change, but I mean, the white removal, the white 1-for-1 removal is a lot more efficient, which is more what this deck wants.
Yeah.
So, I mean, cutting out the black removal, we've got access to Declaration in Stone, we've got access to Dramoka's Command, which works with the deck very well, because the current version of the deck that I'm working on does run 12 creatures. I've got 4 Sylvan Advocates, I've got Nissa Vastwood Seer, Linvala, I've got Dem Protector, so all of these work very well with Dramoka's Command.
Yes.
With the white, I do get access to Gideon, which in my testing, he plays so well with Arlen Cord, it's insane.
Yeah, Gideon Arlencourt is pretty powerful. Like, one thing I've noticed though with your deck, to cut you off there for a second, you're running a lot of 4-drop Planeswalkers. I believe you're running Nahiri as well, right?
Just the one of Nahiri. That one's more of a testing slot. I'm not sure how I feel about her. I actually, in all of my testing, I haven't actually drawn her, or when I've drawn her, it's been like, well, the game's over already, so I don't know how I feel about it, but I kind of have it sitting there as an idea more than anything else. Well,
the one thing that you want to be doing, and this is something for our viewers to know, or listeners as well, at any point, if you had drawn a Gideon or an Arlencourt, would Nahiri been better? That's the question you must ask every single time you draw a Gideon or an Arlencourt.
And I think the idea with having Nahiri in there is just because the +2, discard a card, draw a card, kind of helps the deck because the deck doesn't have really much card draw at all. I mean, it's got the 4 Oath of Nissa kind of card draw because it replaces itself.
Yeah.
I am running 3 Pulse of Marasa in the list right now to assist against the aggro decks, but also get back. You can get back Evolving Wilds to fix the mana. You can get back any creatures that have died in combat. So that's effectively drawing a card.
Value.
Yep. Or I can even put something in the yard. Like, let's say everything in my hand is good, but I would like one more card deeper. I am playing Dem Protector still, so I can still get back anything I discard with Dem Protector. So that's why I'm experimenting with her in the list right now. But ideally, what this deck wants to do, its curve, let's say, is turn 1 Oath of Nissa, turn 2 Sylvan Advocate, turn 3 flip face down Dem Protector or like Dramoka's Command, turn 4 Arlencourt, attack with a giant Sylvan Advocate, and then turn 5 Gideon, attack with a 7/7.
That's good stuff.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, the deck is still playing Chandra just because Chandra is just still so good. She's a board wipe. She makes 3/1s, which works very well with the deck, actually. Yeah, because the deck is very token-spaced. At one point, I was playing Nissa Voices Zendikar over Vastwood Seer, but I went with Vastwood Seer because this deck is more late-game. Tokens play a big role in the deck because I've got Gideons to make emblems, I've got Arlencourt, her flip side, gives everything +1/+1 trample.
I'm liking this. I'm liking this a lot. It's very cool. I'm actually disappointed that you cut the black, but the white's a much better color now. It really is.
Yeah, I'm very sad that I cut the black as well, but the tools in white are just too good to ignore. 2 Linvala, the Preserver, as I said. That's for game 1 against the aggro decks. I can stabilize with stuff like Declaration in Stone and my beefy creatures, and then Linvala just helps close out the game. I mean, big body, brings in an angel, gains you life, just lots of value there.
Yeah, it's just good stuff, dude. I'm excited to see how this deck goes. I hope to play against it pretty soon, actually.
Yeah. So, Danny, what are your plans for constructed formats? I know we were talking about your plans for Modern.
Yeah. So over the past couple of weekends, actually, I've been playing more competitively, and I'm going to go into this a little bit later. But in Modern, I've been playing ad nauseum. I consider myself moderately to very good at ad nauseum, but it's a tier 2 combo deck that runs 0 creatures besides Saving Spirit Guides and the one of Laboratory Maniac. Laboratory Maniac. Sorry about that. I have found that I may be wanting to go into a real deck, maybe actually playing a tier 1 deck. Grixis Control may be on my radar right now. Maybe an Obzon mid-range or something like that. I'm looking into other decks because I have found myself not wanting to play combo as much, which is very weird. You know, from last week I was talking about combo so much,
yeah.
and now I'm saying I don't want to play combo. This kind of relates to, you know, the whole playing over the weekends and stuff like that. But going towards standard, I really am interested in the Green Black Aristocrats and the Seasons Control deck. Both those decks look super powerful and super fun.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting that, as we both talked about last week, we're both combo players at heart, yet all the decks we're looking at right now are control decks.
Yeah, but there's something interesting about playing control. Like, it allows you to play at a different mindset, plus at a different pace, and also saying, like, your opponent can't do specific things without your permission. It's empowering.
Yeah, and I mean, probably my quote-unquote control deck would be considered more of a mid-range deck by most people, but I've been playing it more in a control style of answering threats and then throwing down my own.
Yeah, exactly. So for standard, definitely looking at the green-black decks. They're really cool, really powerful. I may be interested in maybe the ramp deck as well, because I have most of that built. But I play Band Company and the Blue-Red Goggles decks. I don't know if I like either one of them at all. And Modern is such a weird format right now. It's very difficult to get a good read on anything. So playing on a maybe Black Red Blue or Black Red X deck may be the right choice, because you get Artifact Hate, Lightning Bolt, plus Hand Disruption, plus removal.
Yeah, I think that if you can get your hands on some Tarmogoyfs, if you don't have them already, Jund is a very good option in Modern right now.
Yeah, it was actually kind of funny that Reed Duke was saying that Jund is like pretty mediocre right now on Modern, and he is right, but Jund still also has 50-50 versus every deck.
Yeah, and that's always been its strength, and I think that's why it's... I personally think that's why it's good right now, just because the meta is still kind of in flux with Modern since the recent unbanning, and everyone's kind of trying to figure out still what's going on, what deck to play.
Exactly. And speaking about trying to figure out what's going on, so for the past 3 weeks, I have, and this is where I was saying I was going to real talk with you guys, I have been trying to play at a higher level of playing. That meaning, like, I'm trying to become I was trying to become a professional player, or at least trying to get my name out there. I failed miserably, and it's disappointing to say. Pre-release, I did okay. That's nothing to write home about. But when it came to the Invitational, I was pretty lackluster in my events. I played mediocrely. I played badly, and in some matchups, and it started to get to me. So last week I went to States. I went 0-2 drop in both my events, Modern and Standard. And over that weekend, I came to the conclusion that I am playing the game wrong again. And what do I mean by this? Well, when I first started playing Magic, I played it because I was having fun. And I'm going to be using fun a lot in this next couple of minutes here because it's important to remember that you're playing the game for a reason. Whether it's to become good, it's to be a better player, or just because you like to play EDH and you have that turn 3 infinite combo because it's fun. Fun is what you need to be doing in this game. If you are not having fun, you are doing the game wrong, you're going to burn yourself out, and you're going to hate it over a small period of time. And I was in that position not just long ago. I literally was on my way home. I was about to go to Docking Bay and sell my collection. Literally, just about to do it because I was so sick of the game. And I calmed myself down on the ride home and all that kind of stuff and got to thinking, why do I not like it anymore? It's because I try to become a professional player. It's not my style. I like to be good. I like to be a strong player. But that's as far as I should go. You know, I should be really good in the SFM local community. I should maybe go to a couple Grand Prix, try to win out, try to do well, try to be a good player. But that's as far as I should go. Because I don't like spending more than 12 hours a week looking at Magic. I like Magic a lot. I think it's the greatest game that's ever been invented. I've enjoyed it for the past 3.5 years. But when I put myself in that position where I was trying to grind really hard for these wins, and I didn't do well, it hurt. It really did. It made me realize that I'm not as good as I thought I was. And it took me back, you know? And I'm going to be going to my FNM this weekend, and I'm going to go play to have fun. I don't care anymore. It's about fun.
Yeah, and I think you make a very good point there. As much as we like to be competitive, as much as we here on the podcast like to talk about building your deck to win, don't lose sight of having fun with the game. I mean, this is a game. It was designed for entertainment, so do not lose sight of that. And just make sure that you are enjoying yourself. If you're not enjoying yourself, take a step back, reevaluate what you've been doing, reevaluate how you're playing Magic, and just take another look at it. See what you need to do to make sure that you are actually enjoying yourself so that you can continue playing. Because once you're getting no enjoyment out of something, what's really the point of doing it?
Exactly. You start to drain yourself out. You start despising certain people. Like, that becomes a pain in the butt as well. Like, you're like, oh, I hate when I have to verse that guy. You don't want to do that. You want to play against that guy because he's a good player, and you want to learn from that experience and become a better player because of it. But also, that player has skills that you don't, and you want to learn from it, and you also want to have fun while doing it. All these kind of things, it's really difficult to do. But you know what? At the end of the day, if you're not having fun, take a step back. Like Carl said, take a look at it and go, what am I doing wrong? Try playing EDH, because pretty soon Carl's going to try to get me into EDH. I can't wait. I want to have fun with EDH because it's such a different format compared to everything else. But if you're a kind of guy that likes to play Necropotence in Vintage, go for it. So long as you're having fun, you're doing it right.
Mm-hmm. So I think that about does it for our episode this week. Now, just a quick announcement. We are finally up on YouTube and iTunes for those of you who have been asking me. So you guys can subscribe to us at both those locations. Make it very easy to find us. I'll have links in the description. Make sure to follow us on Twitter. Follow our sponsors on Twitter and Facebook, and share out the link. We want to make sure that everyone gets a chance to listen to us, gets a chance to hear our insight on the game, and just get better. That's why we're doing this.
Spread the love, and also have fun. Never forget that.
All right, we'll see you guys next week.